Hello everybody, welcome back to my play-along tutorial of Europa Universalis 4. I hope you've been learning some stuff through this little series. I'm only going to probably do this episode, maybe another one, depends on how this one goes. It's really intended to just get you over the initial hump of the fear of what do I do. Once I personally did that and got in and started playing, I felt so much more comfortable learning as I went, and then I was able to research other systems and such. So I really feel like just putting the game into your guys' hands and just getting you encouraged to actually play it is super important. So to that end, I wanted to go over some of the UI elements that I haven't really touched. So at the very beginning of this series, I just sort of dove straight in and didn't really explain a whole lot of what you're actually seeing in terms of the information that's being presented to you, and I want to rectify that. So first things first, in the upper left-hand corner we have the production interface, which I've already showed off a little bit. We have the sort of general government tabs of interface. I'm just going to very briefly go through these and just try to keep in mind that anytime you have a situation arise, this is where you should be going. And each of these individual areas has a ton of information that will help you manage your country. This game has a very high skill ceiling. The more that you know about the systems, the more that you interact, the better you'll do. But it doesn't prohibit you from having a good time and doing well in the game by not knowing those things. So don't feel intimidated. Alright, so this first screen here, this describes our government. We're an empire. These are some stats that we have. So we have some unrest, unjustified demands, monthly autonomy change. Who knows what those are? All you should know right here, the most important is the national unrest, because we've dealt with that. National unrest deals with the rebels. We've dealt with rebels, so that's a benefit that we get here. These are our advisors. I already talked about them a little bit. This is a quick little reference on how much power we're generating. This talks a little bit about culture, which kind of affects how good your country is in terms of its production and whatnot. But general government tab here. Next up, diplomacy. This is a tab that gives you information on your country as well as other countries. Whenever you click on a country and you're on the diplomacy tab, you'll get a full rundown of not only what rivals they have, what people have rivaled them, but anybody who's getting improved relations, who they're allied with, who they're royal married with, all sorts of information. In addition, you can also see what level of techs anybody is at. So this guy's at level 3 tech of each of these, their stability, their prestige, which we'll get to here in a little bit, and a bunch of other information. Tons of information, as well as the interactions that you use to actually affect the game, talk to other people, and do things with them. Each of these collapses or opens up into a variety of different options. They all are pretty well self-descriptive, and if you ever get some time, it's not a bad idea to just kind of mouse over each of these to see what all is available. So improving relations, we've already talked about a little bit. We did get some royal marriages, although we didn't really... actually, I'll click on my own country here just for a minute. There we go. I'll just talk to these guys. Royal marriage is one of those things that we got a few of, but we really didn't talk about. That has to do with your lineage. Until you really understand what's going on with that, I would just try to get as many royal marriages as you can, or rather accept any royal marriages that people send to you. Don't go too excessive with it. There's a limit on how many you can have. It's your diplomatic relations at the bottom of the thing that I'm currently mousing over. You want to keep your amount of royal marriages to that or lower. But basically, more royal marriages means that your nobles and your royal line is getting it on with other countries' royal lines, and that will ensure that you always have a viable person to inherit your country once your current ruler dies. So, really important. Fabricate claim. I just want to reiterate this. I don't believe I actually described the entire process of claim fabrication, but it's very important. And I want to actually get that started now. So previously, and I'll come back to that screen in a minute. Previously, we had just declared war on these guys because we had already had claims on them. They were essentially our territory, and then we were just reconquering them. But if we want to expand, we need to fabricate claims, or otherwise earn a claim to be able to say, yes, I have a valid reason to attack these people. You can get them through missions, which we've already done. So, like, for example, conquer Trebizond. There's a good chance this would actually give me a claim on Trebizond if I didn't already have one, which I may not actually already have one. Let's accept this mission and see what happens. Okay, so it actually gave us a claim, Conquest Casus Belli against Trebizond. So just by having that mission, we have made it one of our national goals to attack Trebizond. So that's cool. But say we want to attack Akayunlu. We have no claim against them. If I go to diplomacy, declare war, is going to say, well, actually, I guess we do have Reconquest on them. Let me find somewhere where we don't. That was a bad example. How about Serbia? I don't think we have a claim here. Yeah, no Casus Belli. That's bad. But say we wanted to actually go after Serbia anyway. So what we could do is we could fabricate a claim. So basically we send one of our diplomats to infiltrate their country and mock up some documents that say, hey, turns out there's an ancestral claim that is valid, and more or less that will allow you to attack them without any sort of diplomatic penalty. So you just pick one of their various provinces. Let's just pick Kosovo. And you hit OK. You have a chance of getting caught and suffering a little bit of a diplomatic hit, but it's not a big deal. So the point of this is that whenever you attack anybody, make sure you have a Casus Belli. It is incredibly important to do so. So going back to the list here, there's a few other sort of covert actions you can do. Again, I encourage you to check all these out. There's also military access. Normally you can't move your troops through other countries, but if you want to get somewhere to fight a war or something, you can click on something, hit ask for military access, and once you've been granted military access, you can send your troops in there. So that's always handy stuff to know. Next thing, economy. This is a tab dealing with your money. We never really talked about ducats at all, but that's the currency. That's the amount of money that you have. The Ottomans start off fairly rich with a good source of income, so you can spend pretty aggressively. Other countries aren't quite as lucky. But the big things you're going to be spending ducats on are right there. Advisors, army, your fleet, your forts, your missionaries, basically anything that you could think of that would require money usually requires money, as well as events here and there. There's inflation you could potentially deal with. You can take loans if you get to be broke. You can also adjust all these sliders to see how much or how little you want to pay each individual thing. But until you get comfortable with the game more in general, just don't even look at this tab. If you're not making money, then do your best to stop spending it, get rid of your advisors first, and go from there. But otherwise, especially as the Ottomans, you really shouldn't have any financial problems. So next up is the idea groups. We haven't gotten to these, and I don't think we're quite going to get to them in this series, since this is either going to be the last episode or the next to last episode. Actually, I could probably be running time while I do this. We're just going to go down to 3x, and we're going to run time while I'm doing this. Probably going to get a bunch of pop-ups, and that's okay. I'm going to start investigating some of those. But basically, these are like little tech trees, little passive trees you can get. You'll end up with a total of 8 of them over the entire game. Your country itself also has a sort of tech tree that you go through as you are getting these ideas. And they basically allow you to guide your country in certain different avenues. So if you want to be more of a religious-based faction, you can do that. You could do diplomacy stuff, trade, exploration. There's all sorts of options. So let's take a look at this here. See what we get. Lose piety, gain piety. I believe our default was just to take the first option. But I'll take a quick look at this. We're going to go ahead and skip ahead, I guess, to the religion tab. We've already seen ideas. We've already seen tech. Kind of glossed over tech. Actually went right by it. There's also the trade menu, which is something that's very complicated, and I wouldn't even worry about learning early. The game starts you off with a good trade setup, and you can kind of expand it from there if you choose, but not something you overly need to worry about until you learn the game more. We already know tech. We already know ideas, or at least are learning a little bit. We know missions and decisions. Stability and expansion we've already covered as well, so let's just go right to the religion tab, and in this case, piety. So this is specific to people who are Muslims. They have a piety slider, and they give you various benefits for having high piety or low piety, and that's pretty much all there is to it. You get missionary strength when you're maxed out on piety, your armies have better morale, and your forts are better defended. Whereas if you're all the way down to the lack of piety, you have better tax collection, more manpower available, and cheaper techs. So I generally prefer to go lack of piety for quite some time, unless I'm really interested in fighting, in which case I'll go to high piety. But that's not really a big deal. We're already kind of on the high piety slider, so we'll just go ahead and grab that. If you play these other countries, your religious screen may be different, but you can take a look at it and figure out everything. Everything has a really good tooltip to it, and will generally give you at least a good amount of information to give you a rough guess of what they do, which is awesome. So this is the military tab. We messed around with this just a little bit. As you get higher tech infantry, you will have unit upgrades. You click on this, and you'll actually see this list of different units that you'll upgrade to. Each of these little pips is sort of how they interact in combat. You can see fire, shock, and morale, and each of these have different effects. Morale, value unit measures how much morale damage it will inflict on opposing units, etc. So all the information is available there. You can see your Army tradition, Navy tradition, and a bunch of other stats that will affect your certain things. And as you can see, all of these have a mouse over, but none of them are ultra important for the beginning of the game. The best metric you can use to gauge your effectiveness in combat is, do I have more troops than the other guy? If you do, you'll probably do okay. That will definitely change in certain circumstances and is something you will learn as you play more, but at the beginning of the game, when you're first learning, don't worry about it. Just like everything else, there's all this complexity, and we're just going to say, screw it, throw it out the window, we're just going to play the game and see what happens. So here, we just got another pop-up. This is an offer for a royal marriage from Clemson. We've been accepting these, and we're going to continue to accept them. But you can see that it gives you a few different benefits. Having 3 royal marriages, which is what we'll have, will give us a growth in our legitimacy, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. It'll make us allow us to improve relations better, and most importantly, give us a chance of getting a new heir. So we're going to accept that. That is not a bad idea. The last tab I can't actually get to. It's the subjects tab. So if I had a vassal or a colonial nation or anything like that, stuff that you'll have to sort of learn on your own, that's where you would interact with them. But I don't, so I can't. As far as the rest of the information provided here, so you have your treasury, how many ducats you have, your manpower pool, which I've already talked about, stability. If you ever played Civilization 5, stability is basically happiness. It's very similar to happiness. You have to have high happiness for your nation to really be in good shape. As you can see, for having +2 stability, we get better trade power, we're better defended against spies, we have less unrest, we have national tax modifier increase, and even our missionaries are stronger. So that's really, across the board, a good benefit. Stability goes from -3 to +3. You want to keep it at least 0, if not more. I like to keep it at about 1 or higher if I can. I don't try to push it past 1, but I like a bare minimum of 1, and maybe later in the game I'll push it higher. So just a good rule of thumb is you want to keep your stability up, and if you need to increase your stability, you can do it just by spending some admin power right here. Boost stability and expansion. That just makes it better. So that'll help quite a bit. We did just finish converting somebody with our religion, so we'll just keep doing that. Next up is prestige. Prestige is sort of well, it affects many things, but primarily how likely other nations are to accept our proposals. It gives you a bunch of benefits there. Trade power, morale, mercenaries are cheaper, all sorts of really nice little benefits. It's basically how well regarded you are in terms of your power related to other countries. So higher prestige is better. It's really powerful and good to have very high prestige. It's hard to build unless you're attacking people a lot or doing other things that will earn it. But the more prestige you can get, the better. This scales from -100 to +100. Next up is legitimacy. Legitimacy changes by 1.86 every year. Usually is on the upswing unless things are going drastically bad. This is basically in the eyes of your people how they view your current monarchy. Your current kingdom, your current leader, whoever it is, and you can just see our claim fabrication on Serbia just finished, so we can now attack them. We have a Casus Belli against them. You basically just want to keep this as high as possible. There are certain events that may lower it a little bit, but if you get low legitimacy, you can get into a really nasty situation where you'll start getting heirs that have very little claim to your throne, and there's even a chance that other countries could take yours over simply because you have a weak enough government. So if you ever get an event that says you want to ask you to lower your legitimacy for some benefit, be careful about it. Lastly, up here in this area, we have power projection. This is somewhat similar to prestige, but more military focused, where this is how you are projecting your nation as a conqueror, as a powerful nation, versus the people who you have chosen to rival. So when you beat your rivals in a war, or even enter a war with them, when you take their provinces, when you insult them or humiliate them, that gives you power projection. In addition to giving you more morale, more global trade power and such, you also can have extra leaders without upkeep, which is like military leaders, and you can even generate more monarch points, more of these very important power points, by having a high power projection. So use the rival system to not only to guide yourself into where you should be attacking, but also to earn this sort of ability. So like our long-term goal should be to attack into the Mamelukes, Poland, or Hungary. Just good stuff to know. So I did mention when I first started this, or at least I had meant to mention, or at least give the impression when I started this tutorial series, that I didn't want to just sit here and just do an information dump. So you're probably wondering why I'm doing that right now. The reason is, a good chunk of this game really is just sitting and waiting until you discover more and more things you can do. And it looks like somebody was fabricating on us. Until you discover more and more things that you can do, there is nothing wrong with running time, and I really want people to get comfortable with that when you're playing this game. It was one of the biggest things that I had trouble with. Just play. Just don't worry about it. Play as the Ottomans. They're super powerful. It's not a big deal. But we do have some time, and we should probably work on figuring out who we want to attack next. So, yeah, we're kind of gaining piety, so even though this is going to cost us some admin power, we'll just go ahead and do that. So, at this point, I would take a moment now, rather than clicking through and following those general rules, to at least try to make some sort of an effort to figure out what is going to happen when you do these various events. So we're just going to go ahead and gain some piety there. That should put us up to 100. That'll make our... oh, nope, 73, not quite 100. We're getting up there, though. That'll make our missionary work faster and give us a few other benefits, which is nice. But let's keep an eye out on where we want to attack. So I want to continue to attack in this direction if I can. I had just gotten into a fight with a country that no longer exists here, so I probably have the opportunity to attack either of these guys. Let's check their allies. These guys are allied with Akkoyunlu. These guys are allied with Akkoyunlu as well. And these guys are allied with both of these. So I want to try to attack in this direction, but of course I've got to be very careful about where I do it so I don't end up fighting a bunch of different people. So let me bring my army to their borders so I can make sure that I am ready to attack if and when I want to attack. Another thing to keep in mind as well, when you're navigating through all these things, pay attention to the alliances. Pay attention. And you can also use hotkeys too. There are tons of hotkeys that I don't even really use because I prefer mouse control since I can control the flow of the game. But if you want to play this more like a traditional real-time strategy game, there are tons of hotkeys you can use to that end. But so let's see what would happen if we declare war on any of these guys. We're not going to do it. I just want to see. Oh, hey, that's kind of a nice benefit. Traveling Minstrel, we can either get 1 stability or 10 prestige. Well, let's go up to 3 stability. Why not? I do like stability, so let's go up for that. So if we declare war on Karaman, Akkoyunlu will defend them. We have a CB where we'll get no help. None of our allies will help us for various reasons. Distant war, and manpower issue. So Akkoyunlu would come in to help them. What about if we attack Dulkadir? What does that look like? Akkoyunlu will come in and help them. We have the Reconquest Kestis Belly, and none of our allies will help. And then what about if we actually attack Akkoyunlu? Both of his allies will help, and none of our allies will help. So obviously we want to attack one of these lesser partners, so we don't end up fighting all 3 of them. I think we should probably attack these guys since they're a little closer, but I want to get a little bit more information on that. So one of the big lessons of this is going to be how to check the ledger. The ledger is very, very important, and it provides you with an abundance of information. So we can already see that Karaman only has 9 troops and probably only has 5 ships. In fact, let's bring our fleet over here as well. But we can't really see well into Akkoyunlu, and it'd be really nice to have that information. So let's take a look at the ledger. I'm going to click on the ledger. It's right down here, this little graph area. Shortcut is L. You can just hit L. This brings up the ledger index. There is an absolute abundance of information here that you can find out about not only your own country, but other countries. I personally have not even really looked into a million of these different things. But you can even see here, there's a summary of all the Casus Belli you have. There's a ridiculous amount of information in here. But the one we want to find out is military. I want to find out the army strength of Akkoyunlu. So I click on that. I go to there. Akkoyunlu has 6,000 infantry, 3,000 cavalry. They have a manpower reserve of 12,000, and they have 9,000 total troops currently active, and a force limit of 12. So there you go. Gives you all the information you need. You can find out about their navy, which of course they have no navy because they're landlocked. And just clicking through here, there are just pages and pages and pages of information. So the game does an excellent job of providing you with all this information. So we do have another option for attacking somebody, and that would be to attack Trebizond. Trebizond, there's no truce with us, but that is our current mission. They're allied with Theodoro and Circassia. Theodoro is right here. I do know that. And Circassia is right here. Let's see what would happen if we attack Trebizond. Who would come in against us on that? So we would actually get the help of Crimea, but both of his allies would come in. So that's kind of another option. I don't really feel like fiddling with some naval warfare, and I'd rather just take some more of our core territory right now. Just get a bigger chunk of territory. So I think we're going to go ahead and declare war here, but just know that there's other options. You know, you should always keep your options available and continually be scanning each of these different areas to find your next opportunity. Always a good idea. So my plan for this war is going to be to swoop in with all of my troops, and I'm going to just try to get to his troops and just kill them outright as quickly as I can. Just get in there as fast as I can and completely destroy all of his troops. Let's check for forts here. He has a fully maintained fort on the water there. He has his capital fort. There's no fort here. There's a capital fort that's mothballed. That means that it's not actually being paid for right now. So I should probably get a pretty good early attack into that before he actually fortifies it. So a mothballed fort basically means that a fort physically exists there, but it doesn't have a garrison, doesn't have supplies, and it takes time to unmothball a fort. So that's something to keep in mind. I think actually to that end, I'm just going to use this single troop with my good general to come down here and fight this. I want to try to get in on Akayunlu as soon as possible and get to that fort once I've declared war on him before he can really come after me. So let's get our troops as close as possible. I'm going to go ahead and run time. And good enough for me. We're going to do a couple other checks here. Our manpower is actually maximum. Can we actually make any troops? We can make a couple troops. We might as well. Let's make a couple troops just to have a few in reserve, just in case. So there we go. We made some troops. Double check the war interface here. We do have a Casus Belli. There's no other negative penalties we're going to eat. Akayunli will be coming in to fight us. We can't call our allies in. So let's just go ahead and do this. So you can set the war goal, which in this case would allow you to, through any specific war, there's a war goal. And whichever side achieves the war goal gets a better war score. It doesn't mean you're necessarily winning or losing, but that particular part of the war is the more valuable, more important part of it. So I'm going to set the war goal to take Konya. That means that if we're holding Konya, that should give us a big boost in the effectiveness of the war. You can see here, take core Konya. So if we hold Konya, you can even see it over here, we will gain ticking war score. Our war score will be continually increasing so long as we have and hold Konya. So I'm going to send my troops over here. Looks like this guy was a little dedicated. Actually, Akayunli may not have answered the call yet since I just declared. Okay, now I think they probably have answered the call. Yeah, usually there's a little bit of a brief moment before they will directly respond to that. And it looks like they're attacking into Konya as well, so our troops are going to be clashing here. And you can see, and actually just thankfully due to the extremely awesome general that we have, the 3331 general, we actually just completely crushed those troops. Did what's called a stack wipe, where we just completely killed them. Looks like we got another fight going into here. I don't think we're going to get a stack wipe here, but we should be able to do some pretty serious damage. Yeah, a lot of damage there. And now I'm just going to send my dudes in. We're going to do some sieging. So one thing I could also do to prevent the... I'm going to show you guys a little bit of micromanagement here, just to get a little bit more particulate in the details and such. Oh, I can't chase them down. I want to siege down all these provinces as quickly as possible. Or at least these two right here. This will prevent them from producing any troops here at all. And that'll help out, because I don't want them to have any resistance at all. The fewer casualties I take, even if it would only be a couple, the better. So I want to click on this. I want to select the army, and I'm going to split the army up. I'm going to create a new unit just to show that again. I have the army selected. Actually, it does create a new unit even if you don't put any troops in it. But click on this, click on the green double arrows, create new unit, and I'm going to select, I'm just going to send one infantry over, and we're going to grab that unit, and we're going to send it over here. I'm going to do the same thing here. It only takes a single unit of infantry or any type of military to siege down a province that doesn't have a fort. There's just simply no enemies in that area, and you can see he's already trying to recruit more troops, which I should be able to hopefully deal with. Yeah, he's probably going to start sieging my stuff, so I'll just bring these guys around. But all it takes is a single group of 1,000 troops, and everything will be fine. Okay, so it looks like... Wait, Karaman declared war? Or did Dulkadir declare war? Okay, so Dulkadir declared war. I was confused for a moment. So we're in a very interesting situation now, because he is going to come down here and attack this place. And it's very likely that he will win the siege, and that means I may not be able to get that land right now. So kind of an unforeseen circumstance, but not really a big deal. Because it's likely this guy is going to be our next source for conquest after we take these two out. In fact, if I really felt like being brave about it, I could just declare war on him as well. But since we're kind of new at this, I think it's more safe to just manage a single war while we're at it. I don't necessarily want to go completely overboard on this. So no reason to get overextended. That's another really good rule of thumb, something that you should really watch out for, is when you are conquering, especially when you're just starting to learn the game, don't get overzealous about things. It's always better to take a little bit of land at a time until you really know what you're doing, to make sure you're not going to overextend yourself and end up in some serious trouble. And trust me, you will end up in some serious trouble if you do. So once I have this war in hand, I will probably attack this guy straight away, or maybe even Trebizond straight away, and just get right into it. Since this war is going to go pretty quickly anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and go 5x for a little while and speed it up, so we can get a little bit more stuff covered here. We have won the siege of Dia Kabir. That's fine. Actually, I'll wait for these guys to get all grouped up, so I have a far superior force, and hopefully we'll be able to get a stack wipe on these guys here. I'm going to merge these armies together. And you can see we're getting peace offers. No thanks. No thanks. The siege was over right here, which actually forces the ships out. And that's why we got a naval notification there. And our siege is over as well. So that's good. And it looks like those troops are gone. And you can always check the ledger at any time during a fight as well. You don't have to check it necessarily only when you're waiting for war. You can check it while you're at war as well. All right, so let's take a look at whether or not we actually have core claims on any of these provinces. So you can see here, of course, our shield being the yellow crescent. You can see we have a core claim on all 4 of these provinces already. So that means that we'll be able to take these without any worries. These are our land that was taken from us, so we're simply taking it back. Same thing over here. We have a claim here, but we don't have claims here. And so that means we need to be a little bit careful when we're dealing with our peace settlement. So let's go ahead and sue for peace. I want to take this land. I would like to take this land, but it's occupied by somebody else, so there's not much I can really do about that. You can see we have the war score for it. We have a little bit of aggressive expansion, but not really a big deal. And let's see what happens if we would try to take all this. So this is just way too much. We do not have... even though we've completely subjugated these guys, they're unwilling to part with this much land. They're like, hey man, okay, look, you killed us and stuff, but it's just not going to happen. You can't annex this much land in a single go because you just don't have the willpower to do it. So we're not going to quite take that much, but we may be able to even take this here. We'll get 11% overextension, which isn't a ton. And we'll get 1 in 33 aggressive expansion relations penalty with a lot of people. So we'll get a little bit of aggressive expansion. Some of our neighbors aren't going to like it, but that's okay. As long as it doesn't get above 50, you're in good shape. And this will only take us to about 33, so that's fine. I think it's pretty safe to take all this land right now. It would be nice to take all this as well, but in the meantime, it's not really a big deal. And we might as well take some of the cash because this guy's not going to exist anymore. So looks pretty good to me. And I think we will just go ahead and hit send demand. And there we go. We've expanded our territory once more. And hey, look at that. We just got an event right after that. Spend some money or gain some prestige. I think we should gain some more prestige. Not bad. So all of these were already our cores. So we don't have to actually spend the time or resources coring them. They're already ours. Not a big deal. So I will just core the one that we need to core. And we will continue to run time. By the way, if you ever want to check your aggressive expansion, and I highly recommend that you do, it's one of the things you want to always make sure of before you really go to war. It's one of the map modes. It's right here, one to the right and one down from the upper left-hand corner. Click on the country whose aggressive expansion you want to check, so in this case yours, and then mouse over nearby countries. So you can see 29, 5 there, 22, 15, 16... 16. So we got a little bit here and there. Nothing we really need to overly worry about yet, but if we conquered a bunch more territory in a very short amount of time, it would be something we'd worry about. So you guys may have noticed, too, that I'm eating some attrition here, as I have 20,000 troops. This province can only support 13,000 troops, so let's move this guy out of here so we don't need any more attrition, huh? I'll actually split these guys off and go over here. So even though that was a pretty quick war, we actually lost a good amount of manpower, so I think we're going to go into recovery mode for a little bit here. Yeah, we'll keep our piety up as high as possible. There's also a good chance that we will start to see rebels, of course. Looks like, according to our cool little outliner, we have rebels potentially in Diyarbakir, which is where we already have some troops parked. We could actually send a couple more over there, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal. Looks like we have another technology. There's something to be said about the technologies and when you should take them, but I think for now we're just going to keep taking them right away. There's nothing really wrong with that. And hey, look at that. We actually earned a new tech type. Let's see what all... I guess I should have probably checked before that. But we actually got a new troop type. Azab Infantry, superior to Yaya Infantry. Always good. Especially early, the military techs are very powerful.